Grove will be buzzing on Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon. LSU and Ole Miss, 2:30 kickoff from Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Michael Katz will be there. He covers the Rebs for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. Good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Thursday. Michael, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing quite well. What do you feel about this Ole Miss team after a month of football? The same you did in mid-August or any different?
You know, I think I came in probably expecting the defense to be a little bit further along than it is, and it has looked better the last 6 quarters or so. That second half against Arkansas, and then what they did to Tulane. It's a young group. I just think that we all had, given how good the defense was last year, kind of maybe unrealistic expectations. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned about this team is they're kind of gutsy. Last year, it's well documented, they lost 3 games by 13 points, including to LSU. That game against Kentucky at home was really kind of ended up being the nail in the coffin when it came to the CFP race. And then obviously they lost to Florida. They couldn't win close games last year, and I think a lot of that was because they couldn't run the ball when they needed to. It happened against LSU. It happened against Florida. They just couldn't get big conversions when they needed to. This year, they played a tight one at Kentucky, and Kentucky was a really big one for them just to kind of get over that hump, especially with what happened last year. They were able to run the ball late. They were able to close the game out against Arkansas by forcing a late fumble. This is a team that I think is not probably quite as star-powered as last year's, but they have won close games, and I didn't see that from the team last year. So I think that's my biggest takeaway is that, at least as of now, they've learned how to close out games better than they were able to last year.
Let's not bury the lead any further here. Quarterback's obviously a huge storyline with Austin Simmons dealing with the ankle injury. There were reports yesterday that Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the guy. How do you feel about it at this point in the week, and what has Chambliss given him?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to get the nuclear codes, trying to get injury information from Lane Kiffin, and there's obviously a lot of games and shit that goes on. Austin has been available the last 2 weeks, and he did play against Arkansas. He came in and threw a touchdown when Trinidad injured his hand for a moment. But I just think that with the way this offense wants to operate, or at least has the last couple of weeks, with wanting design quarterback runs, Trinidad's going to give you the best option in that regard with Austin's ankle injury. And Trinidad's just been one of the stories of college football the last few weeks. He's a Division II national champion from Florida State that I think everybody just assumed was the guy you bring in to be the backup, and here he is. He's got 400 yards of offense, I believe, each of the last, his 2 starts, and he became just the 4th Ole Miss quarterback to ever throw for 300 and run for 100 in the same game. So, and I think the biggest thing, though, is that he hasn't turned the ball over. Austin Simmons had thrown 4 receptions over his 2 starts. Trinidad has not put the ball in harm's way, and I think, especially in a game like this, where you can't afford to give away possessions, I think that's going to be really important. So, obviously, Austin's a really, really talented player. He was undisputed QB1 heading into the season, but Trinidad's given them a lot of good stuff, and I think with what the offense wants to do, he just might be the best solution right now.
As far as the run game goes, I just spent 15 minutes talking about it, but what has Lacey given them out of the backfield?
He's been great, and that was I think people think of Lane Kiffin's offense as being very quarterback heavy and friendly, and he's obviously done great work with quarterbacks, and Jackson Dart was a first-round pick for a reason, but Lane Kiffin's best teams have always run the ball really well, and last year was the worst rushing Ole Miss team that he's had, and they really tried to get back to their roots and brought in a bunch of running backs, Kiwan Lacey being the featured one. He's been dynamic. His numbers have been down a little bit the last couple of weeks, but Trinidad Chambliss' numbers have sort of evened that out with his scrambling and then the designed runs with him. I think Lacey leads the SEC with like 7 rushing touchdowns. We knew he was an explosive player coming in, but he's had better contact balance and been a little bit tougher at the goal line than at least I expected. So, unlike last year where it was sort of a revolving door at running back for a lot of the season, like we all know, like the bell cow is Kawan Lacey, and he wants to be the guy that is able to grind out games for them.
Michael Katz is our guest, covers Ole Miss for the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. Tigers and Rebs, 2:30 on Saturday. Let's move to the Ole Miss defense, which had such star power last year. I'm not aware of that kind of star power on this unit, but statistically, they've been really bad against the run and really good against the pass. Let's start with the good. Lowest completion percentage allowed in the SEC. Do you feel like this is a strong secondary?
It's funny because that was one of the biggest question marks coming in was the secondary, because it was pretty much all new guys. They lost some really good players from that secondary last year. Trey Amos was a high second-round pick, and he's playing really well for the Commanders right now. They lost a lot of really good guys from that secondary last year, and we all thought that was probably going to be the weak link coming in. And so far it's held up pretty well. If we're being honest, they haven't played. Taylor Green, he had his way to an extent a little bit, but he's proven to be one of the better quarterbacks in the country so far. And he's the best quarterback they've played, and he had some success. But I think part of that too was because of his ability to, you got to account for his running as well. But I think for the most part, I think they've held up pretty well in the secondary. I think the thing that's probably most surprising is that the secondary's held up as well as it has with a lack of a pass rush. I mean, this was a team that led the nation in sacks per game with 4 and has 4 total so far. So I think everything, given all those things, I think the secondary has done a pretty good job so far.
Can't really say the same for the front 7 as far as rushing yards allowed, and then you mentioned the pass rush. What's the problem up front for Ole Miss?
It's been really surprising. Kamarion Franklin, their end, has like 12 quarterback hurries this year, which is among the best in the SEC, and I don't know if he has a full sack yet. The leading sack guy is Xavier Harris. He's a defensive tackle with 2. Centurion Perkins had 10.5 last year. He does not have any yet. So they've been really close, but they just haven't been able to finish off those sorts of plays. As for the run game, earlier in the year when we asked Lane Kiffin about it, he said part of that is, when you're scheming for teams, you're willing to concede some things when you take away other things, and that's the numbers aren't going to look great when the scheme is asking you to do certain things. But it feels like we're at a point, a third of the way through the regular season where it does seem to be a problem. It settled down a little bit in the second half against Arkansas. Last week against Tulane, I think they ended up with about 180 yards, but that was kind of garbage time stuff with the game being so out of hand. So I do think it's getting better, but I just think that they've missed a lot of tackles early on in the season. This kind of have had guys out of position. It's such in stark contrast to what we saw last year when, again, I know there were so many stars, but they gave up like 80 yards a game, and right now I think they're at about 190, somewhere around there in terms of rush defense. So it's been really kind of jarring looking at these last 2 defenses, but the talent's there. It's just a matter of at what point does it really all start to click, and I think they feel like maybe last week was when it really started to click.
Obviously a huge field goal at the time in overtime last year for Ole Miss from north of 55 yards to get points on the board, unless you scored one play later to win it. But if this game came down to a kick, how would Ole Miss feel about that?
They love Lucas Carnero. They had a good one last year too in Caden Davis. He made I think it was like 57-yarder. Yeah. He hit the heck out of that thing. But he did miss a kick against Kentucky, and I think fans remember that one as well. But he was really good, and so when they went in the portal and brought in Carnero from Western Kentucky, who was a Lou Groza semifinalist, and he actually just missed his first kick of 50 yards or more in his career this year. But he's hit a 54-yarder already They feel really, really good about him, and I think that's part of what makes this matchup interesting. Is we think of Lane Kiffin as this, the fourth down gambler, but they've only gone for it twice this year on fourth down, and I think part of that is because they feel pretty good about their specialists, and there's some games where you're just going to have to take the points, and that's because that's what's best for you. So it's been really interesting to see how they handle that. But if it comes down to the kicking game, I think they feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, Lane's been as aggressive as any coach in the country, quite literally on fourth downs, and that just hasn't been the case. Do you think it's just a kicking deal, or do you think there's a philosophical change because he's gotten burned a little bit by going for fourth downs?
Yeah, I mean, it's live by the sword, die by the sword to an extent. It's worked a lot for him. I think last year I think they'd gone for it 7 times through 4 games. And I think you would probably expect that because your defense was so good, right? Like if you had to put them on the field, you felt okay with it. I think with this year, you feel really good about your specialists and putting points on the board. But 2, the defense hasn't been quite as strong. So maybe you don't want to put them in bad field position situations. The game I go back to where it kind of seemed like a turning point was against Georgia last year when they didn't go for it on fourth a bunch and they kicked field goals. And obviously they ended up winning that game. And I feel like that was sort of a big moment. And obviously, he's going to have games where he goes for it on fourth a ton. But I think in like big games where you're going to need every point, it feels like he kind of learned that lesson. So I think there's a lot of those factors kind of go into it.
Michael, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the football on Saturday.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. He
is Michael Katz, Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, covering the Rebs. Great stuff from him there. I'm going to be very, very candid with you, the listener here. I make a pick on this game in 25 hours and 22 minutes. I don't have one yet. And that is probably different from almost everybody in this building that I'm assuming is going to take LSU in this game because LSU, it looks like a really good football team this year. I'm candidly concerned about LSU's ability to run the ball, and that would be taking advantage of Ole Miss's weakness, and I don't know if they can. But I also can see this thing getting really sideways for Trinidad Chambliss against the best defense he's ever seen. I'm torn. I'm not sold on a pick of LSU, and I'm certainly not sold on a pick of Ole Miss. I've really studied this game a lot. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've had now guests from Ole Miss come on. I've obviously dug into a lot of stats that I've ripped off here over the last couple of days. It's I feel like the line is right. It's swung back and forth to 1.5 either way. I think this is going to be a very, very close game. And I don't have a pick. It's interesting to hear from the other side of things. So appreciate Michael for giving us a little bit of time. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.